All righty. Well, I tell you what. Welcome, Ben, indeed. So there's been this fascination with this relatively newfound source of demand for M&A across the broader marketing technology landscape. In particular, this year, there's been a series of transactions. Yeah, a few of them were strategic deals done by the big BAT companies, but we've seen transactions done by private equity concerns in China, consortia to finance transactions in advance of another strategic eventually taking control. And some of these deals have been spectacular valuations, far and above expectations, turning a lot of heads. And so it has created a lot of stir. And I'm here with one of the people responsible, Bin Yang. Welcome to DMS. Bin is managing director at CVCapital. They're an investment bank like Luma, based in China. Bin's here in the Valley. And you guys have been very involved with a number of these cross-border deals. You guys have offices throughout China. You understand the Chinese marketplace, the buyers, and what they're interested in. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation. Just as an FYI, you know, we've been involved in deals together. AppLovin was a deal that CVCapital led and we were involved with. And we're pursuing ways where we can work together since we know the U.S. landscape well, and Ben and the folks at CVCapital are heavily ensconced in China. So, Ben, I'd start off with, is it true that in the trunk of your car there's duffel bags full of cash as we speak? No. I guess seriously.
I should carry a sign with the dollar, right? So,
yeah. Or the Y with the two across. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So what's behind this? Let's unpack this. What's going on that all of a sudden in 2016 we're seeing a rash of Chinese buyers?
Yeah, you know, you probably everybody heard from you know, all the media coverage, and there are lots of reasons. On the surface, it seems like there's a clear financial arbitrage because in China, those type of companies are trading at a much higher PE multiple, right? So 50, 60 times on average. So we're
sorry,
here.
that wasn't 15 to 16. That was 50 to 60.
Right. So and then you say, you know, some people say there's a RMB depreciation concern, and people start diversifying their assets. Mm-hmm. But I look at that, or our firm look at that as there are fundamental, deeper reasons, right? So a couple of things worth mentioning. One is China's economy transformation from what we call the old growth model, which are pretty much the infrastructure investment, export, manufacturing, to more of we call the new economy, as more technology and consumer driven. Mm-hmm. So that is underway right now. And government has lots of policy support that, and the capital market reflected much higher valuation because of that. So that's one fundamental driver. And the other, we see many people didn't really pay attention, is as time goes right now, the current business owners and the management team are the generation pretty much born after 1970, 80, or even 90s, right? Those people are very well educated. Many of those are educated overseas, and there's no information barrier. They grew up with internet, so they have a natural global mindset. Mm-hmm. So when the capital market give us support, they're ready to really move to a true globalization. As you know, at least as we see. Yep. This is just the beginning of that trend.
But why the United States of America, and or maybe there's other geographies for which they're targeting? Why these geographies? Is it because these are leading in technology? And is there any expectation that these businesses are actually going to be brought home and scaled on the mainland?
Yeah. So most of course, U.S., especially Silicon Valley, is the center of the technology. As everybody look at that, most of Chinese recognize that. That's why we also set up our business here. So I think it ultimately comes to what the Chinese companies want, right? So they do, on one side, they do want to see a company with a sizable profit. Right. On the other side, they look at the strategic value that could really bring to the how much can be leveraged back to the China side, right, with their existing business, and how much that can be applied. And also on the cross-border side, many Chinese companies now these days they want to grow outside of China.
Right.
So any technology, any footprint, market position can help along those directions will be also very helpful.
Right.
And some of the business I saw Holly here, from Blue Focus, they're already truly global. They already here, they have a global business.
Right.
So not many business like that, but I think that's also the future trend.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly some of the conversations we've had, there's been a strategic element to it. That is to say, you'll have a mobile marketing company in China looking at mobile marketing technologies and capabilities here in the US. But when we see things like a chicken distribution company in China buying a US gaming company, I mean, clearly there's
Right.
something more going on than
Yeah.
just strategic fit, clearly.
Yeah, we see many of those, we call it the cross-territory buyers. Those are the traditional sector, the really see very slow growth in their core business. They want to really move towards a technology-driven model. So that's, yeah.
How do you qualify the Chinese buyers?
Yeah, that's a very good question, right? So that comes to our expertise because when we help our client, most of the US and European companies, we look at the deal certainty as the most important thing, right? So we don't want to just say one of the buyer just gave a very high valuation, we'll go for it, right? So we'll really analyze what the deal certainty is. The deal certainty could really come down to the funding, the deal structure, and the management strategy, the synergy part, how experienced they are in terms of M&A, especially cross-border M&A.
Right.
So those are all the key elements we'll look at that help our clients really make sure the buyer is really a solid.
So speaking of structure, I mean, these Chinese cross-border deals are different
Right.
than U.S. deals. They tend to have a complication level to them in the structuring. I remember in Media.net, some of the consortium members were still, there was the deal might have been somewhat further delayed than it would have otherwise have been because of the individual financing of each of the consortium members. What advice would you give folks who may be on the receiving end of some interest from a potential Chinese buyer as it relates to some of the unique aspects of structures, what to watch for, what to be careful about considering this particular buyer set?
Oh yeah, so that's pretty complicated.
Or do we, and we have an hour, yeah. Right.
Okay, so it is. I think when if somebody got a inbound interest from China, my advice would be really kind of pay more attention to the buyers. Again, it's the deal certainty, right? So whether it's a qualified buyer, how do they fund the deal, how do they structure the deal? So back to Media.net, part of the reason there's a buying consortium is because we were suggesting our client to really ask for a structure not including a government approval, which
Right.
is Chinese SEC, right, called CSRC approval process. And that approval process typically take a longer time and
Right.
with some uncertainties. So that's why they put a consortium first and buy out the company and then do the second step, sell to the public company.
Right.
So that's really something we can add value towards, yeah.
And and these Chinese buyers, of course, you see some activity like Media.net and AppLovin, and all of a sudden our phone rings off the hook, your phone rings off the hook. Everyone wants to be bought by the Chinese for a couple $2 billion, why not? But it's not for everybody. What kind of criteria would you suggest, and obviously, sort of very high level in terms of, besides the strategic fit of any particular technology, of what some of these Chinese, in particular the earnings arbitrage oriented buyers are looking for?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned, there are two key things, right? They're looking for. On one side, they like to have a profit, so there is a clear arbitrage over there, and on the other side is really the strategic value. It could come down to the technology, the market position, the brand, the R&D, and everything could be strategic, right? So one thing to keep in mind is in China is still fairly fragmented market in this space relative to the US. So different players have different level of understanding and the needs. So it's not like in the US, people are normally have a sophisticated understanding of the industry and they know what they want in terms of capabilities. But in China, we see this had happened in the past several years. We call the first wave of M&A in the tech space. There were at least 50, 60 transactions happened.
Right.
And many of those are just, I just want to buy one, right? I don't care who it is, what the business is.
Yep.
And then now it start getting to those first wave pretty much getting to the end. And those players start looking at their current business and the acquired entity, and they start thinking about what our future strategy would be and where the synergy could be, right? So they will be more selective in that way. So I think we see the market, the buyers are gradually getting more and more mature and sophisticated.
Right.
Yeah.
We have actually, besides the closed transactions, we've seen some Chinese deals that actually didn't make it to the finish line. Any tales or lessons learned from some of the deals that actually ended up breaking and didn't conclude?
So far we're good, right? So
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Right. So I do see that really there are, beside of the this comes to the deal certainty.
Yep.
Beside of the funding issue, the conversion of the RMB to US dollar, as everybody know, there's more tightening policy from the China side.
Right.
Beside of those, I think there are some of the culture barriers as well.
Right.
Sometimes just both sides could not understand each other in a more effective way. So if some of the deals fail because of that. Very few blocks from the Chinese government standpoint, right? Besides the funding, the RMB conversion side, I think most of the cross-border transactions are supported by the Chinese government.
Right.
That's pretty much as we see it. But I think the preparation, the assessment of the buyer, and pick the right one is very critical. Yeah.
And of course, as you know, it's good to hear that the Chinese government gives generally green lights. And as you know, our new president-elect just loves China. China.
Yeah.
Last question is, the BAT group, the Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, the three major companies in China have not historically been as active doing overseas acquisitions, erring instead to build capabilities and build them largely in their domestic and related markets. Why is that, and do you expect any change in that regard?
Yeah, we certainly see that several years ago they had a lot of investment, right? Not M&A. Yep. And those are all large organizations. So their corporate development team are pretty much ex-Goldman or Morgan Stanley bankers, right?
Yep.
So to some extent, they really value business as the same as the US buyers, right? Versus the other group of buyer we're targeting are 300, probably 400 publicly listed companies in China. And
400 publicly listed companies in China, all looking for this arbitrage opportunity. Excellent.
People probably never heard about the name, right? So that's actually the uniqueness of our business model.
Yep.
That's U.S. investment bank. They all have a team in Hong Kong, but they really don't know those guys in China domestic. And China domestic bank, they know those buyers, but they don't really have the capability to be represent the foreign companies.
Great.
Right? So that's our unique business model.
Yep.
But back to your question, I think it really there is we see the significant potential from those groups, but the BAT because they are not able to compete in terms of price, they try to leverage their bargaining power, right?
Sure.
So that's why I don't see, unless of course if you're a company, you see a great synergy with BAT. You may have the same price level with the U.S.
Right.
buyers,
Yep.
you'll go for it.
Yep.
But otherwise, why do that, right? So
Right.
that's very simple. Yeah.
So there you have it. So for some select companies with the right financial performance and good strategic positioning, hopefully there's going to be additional opportunities. Do you think we're going to see more deals, right? Until something changes.
Yeah, right.
Good.
So we do have some good pipeline over there. Yeah.
Excellent, fantastic. Well, I hope that we'll be able to actually work together on some of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Ben. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you.